I'm going to talk about the principle of legalism, especially as it applies in the United States. Legalism, as compared to justice, legalism is a complete corruption. Mankind made a terrible mistake with legalism, if I can call it a mistake, but needs to be corrected, of trying to obtain justice through legalism. Justices of the peace became law enforcement. A legal written code was written out, and mankind made the mistake of thinking that the more specifically we can write this code and more code, written words, that the more mankind would be protected. It is in fact the opposite. Legalism in the United States controls almost all aspects of any business, any person, anything one says or does now. It's the principal cause for a high cost of medical care. Everything has to be done to the nth degree or you could be sued. Everything is you could be sued part. So do not confuse legalism with justice, because it's nowhere near it and is more likely opposite justice. Legalism is not just. It is not fair. It is not intelligent. It is not holy in any way. It is intellectual. The symbol of legalism in the United States is often referred to as a blindfolded statue of a woman holding scales. Let me state, justice is not blind, nor blindfolded. Justice sees clearly and has an open heart and is compassionate. It sees everything. It is built upon and never denies truth. The legal system denies truth. Truth is a higher priority than justice. You cannot deny truth and determine justice. That happens all the time in the U.S. legal system. There are deadlines set for cases. If you don't get your evidence in time, your truth will not be admissible, never be seen, never be heard. Also, if you are in pro per in a case, you're not an attorney, you don't know the legal code, and you don't know how to present evidence with foundation and relevance, your evidence will not even be accepted. Your truth will not be accepted. This is completely wrong. When you need to have an attorney to even get justice, there is no justice. And particularly for the poor people of this country, the less educated, legalism is corrupt. It is harmful. It is damaging. Justice is just like the word says, just us. Legalism is bent and twisted logicalism in a written format. Attorneys go to school for years and practice for years to understand the written code, and they use it in the spoken code basically to manipulate people. Interestingly, a lot of politicians, professional politicians, come from the lawyer group. Justice is an intention to satisfy conflicts among people. That is the purpose of justice. When you have a society which is contrasted, which is supposed to be, and occasionally getting into conflict, which is known to going to occur, justice is what is meant to resolve the conflict. The primary purpose is to resolve the conflict. Legalism in the United States prolongs the conflict. Attorneys file more and more filings, making the case go longer and longer, costing more and more money, causing more and more psychological, emotional, and financial harm to the parties involved. Legalism is a business in the United States, and that's a terrible, terrible thing. If you're in a case and you don't know what law to cite, well, the judge might know very well what law should be applied, but if you don't speak it, he can't use it. That is corrupt. Judges come from lawyers. They are into the same mechanism and code of legalism. Incredibly damaging. Truth should never be denied in arriving at justice. In the legal system, lawyers can lie. Not supposed to, but they can, really, and they often do it. One should never be allowed to lie in a justice system. Instead of having a lawyer, I would suggest parties have an advocate, someone who presents the best perspective of what happened. And if one is found lying, they can never be an advocate again. Legalism is a letter of the law system, written code system, substituted for mankind being able to come to their own conclusions of intention. The great error of the principle of legalism is that using a written word, piece of paper to guide a human's future is like the tail of a dog wagging the dog and telling the dog what to do and where to go. It is back asswards. The written word cannot judge, cannot decipher, cannot understand, has no intelligence, and has no compassion. Written words are dead. Written words can be manipulated. We've seen that time and again. Manipulation of words is a skill that varies among people, and therefore it is not just. When you need a lawyer to use the law and it has to be hired and paid money, then that's not just because those with less money do poorer than those with more money. That is not justice. Now, in truth, one can write things down as a guide to be remembered. Oh, this is how we were thinking about something. But it cannot use the letter of the law, letter of the written code, to arrive at justice. It will be the opposite nearly every time. In the United States, the legalism system is so vastly corrupt, along with its practitioners, that the entire system of legalism must be replaced with justice and individuals who seek justice. It cannot be improved. It has to be replaced. The overall pattern you can still use, but basically the court systems have to be replaced. The correction of legalism to justice in the United States is probably the biggest, most difficult thing to do because it's so ingrained, is so held in place by lawyers and judges with money and assets who control the system completely. But this is what must be done. People with money can afford attorneys in this current system and do better, get better outcomes than those without money. Being in pro per against attorney is a disaster. You will not have a chance, and the judge will not help you, who is also attorney. They'll know exactly what you should say, what you should quote, but they won't tell you because they believe they have to be blind. That is not how justice works. Truth is denied in the current system. Truth is more important than justice and should never be denied. Currently, it's hid in the legal system. The purpose of justice is to resolve the conflict, whether between people or society. Current system prolongs that conflict, with attorneys knowingly prolonging the cases and getting paid more money, which damages the parties to a conflict more so. To resolve the conflict, everything must be heard, best perspective of the truth presented, and all should be done in a relatively quick time. The damage to the parties involved in the conflict is thus corrected sooner and not prolonged. That damages society when these conflicts are prolonged in society. And usually both parties to a conflict need to be able to go on afterwards, and not one be eliminated, usually. Corporations have been given equal status to an individual. Should never have happened. Corporations have no soul. A living person does. Corporation is just a principal power structure controlled by one or several people who are using that corporation. It is impossible for a non-attorney to understand or apply the law, so vast and complicated and wordy it is at this current time. Thus justice is blocked. To replace the legal system, legalism in the United States, is the third action.